I was standing at the edge of the lake behind our cabin, the mist curling above the water like silent ghosts. The air was cool, crisp, carrying that early morning stillness that usually calms me. But today, calm had no place in my chest. Something felt off the moment I stepped outside. Then I saw her, Lisa, my daughter-in-law. She was crouched low by the water's edge, gripping a large suitcase. My eyes widened, my hands instinctively clenching at my sides. The suitcase looked heavy, almost too heavy for her slight frame. Before I could process what she was doing, before I could even shout, she lifted the suitcase and hurled it into the lake. The splash was deafening in the quiet morning, sending ripples across the still surface. Water droplets caught the sunlight and glittered, mocking me as I froze in disbelief. I shouted her name, my voice trembling, breaking the silence, but she didn't stop. She glanced at me briefly, her eyes wide with shock, or maybe fear, and then she bolted toward the cabin. My stomach churned. I couldn't understand what I had just witnessed. My mind raced. Why would Lisa throw a suitcase into the lake? What could possibly be inside it that was so important, or so dangerous, that she would destroy it without a second thought? My thoughts jumped to the worst possibilities. Was it money? Documents? Something that could ruin us all? I fought the urge to run after her immediately, but something inside me told me to pause. I needed to stay calm. I needed to think clearly. If I made a mistake now, I could lose any chance of understanding the truth. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking. I called Raymond, my son, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic surged through me. He always answers. He always picks up. Not this time. I watched the ripples where the suitcase had disappeared. The water swallowed it whole, hiding whatever secrets it contained. I felt a cold weight settle over my chest. Whatever she had thrown away, or tried to destroy, could change everything. My family, my home, the trust I had placed in her, even my sense of safety. I took a deep breath and tried to steady my trembling hands. I needed to retrieve that suitcase, but how? The water was cold, deep near the center, and dark enough that I couldn't see more than a few inches below the surface. I looked around for a long branch, a net, anything that could help me fish it out without alerting Lisa. I glanced back toward the cabin. Lisa was inside now. No doubt watching me, making sure I didn't know what she had done. My blood boiled, a mix of anger and fear. She thought she could hide her actions. She thought I wouldn't notice. She was wrong. I stepped closer to the edge, testing the muddy ground beneath my boots. Each ripple from the suitcase's splash seemed to pulse against my heartbeat. I could almost imagine it moving, as if the lake itself was taunting me, keeping the truth just out of reach. I tried calling Raymond again, my voice quivering when I left a message. Raymond, it's Mom, call me back. Lisa, she threw a suitcase in the lake. I don't know what's in it. Please, call me back. I hung up, swallowing hard. Silence returned, but it felt heavier this time. The lake, which usually brought peace, now seemed to hold a dark secret, one that Lisa had deliberately tried to bury. And the more I stared at the water, the more I realized this wasn't an accident, a rash decision, or something harmless. This was calculated. She wanted to hide something from me, from Raymond, from everyone. I dropped to my knees at the shore, staring into the water, willing the suitcase to resurface. I couldn't see it. The ripples had flattened. The mist had thickened. The lake had taken her secret, and now it was up to me to uncover it. A chill ran down my spine. I knew this moment would change everything. Nothing would ever be the same again. My instincts screamed at me. Retrieve it before she realizes I know. But the lake, dark and mysterious, had swallowed more than a suitcase. It had swallowed the calm I once felt, the trust I once had, and perhaps the last ounce of ignorance I'd allowed myself. I pressed my fists into my knees, steeling myself for what I would have to do next. The water was just the beginning. Lisa's actions were a signal, a warning that secrets were no longer safe, and that her true intentions were now my responsibility to uncover. I took one final steadying breath and whispered to myself, I will find out what she's hiding, no matter what it takes. I had to retrieve it before she realized I knew, but the water hid more than just a suitcase. What would you do if you caught someone destroying something mysterious in front of you? I was standing at the edge of the lake behind our cabin, the mist curling above the water like silent ghosts. The air was cool, crisp, carrying that early morning stillness that usually calms me. But today, Calm had no place in my chest. Something felt off the moment I stepped outside. Then I saw her. Lisa, my daughter-in-law. She was crouched low by the water's edge, gripping a large suitcase. My eyes widened, my hands instinctively clenching at my sides. The suitcase looked heavy, almost too heavy for her slight frame. Before I could process what she was doing, before I could even shout, she lifted the suitcase and hurled it into the lake. The splash was deafening in the quiet morning, sending ripples across the still surface. Water droplets caught the sunlight and glittered, mocking me as I froze in disbelief. I shouted her name, my voice trembling, breaking the silence, but she didn't stop. She glanced at me briefly, her eyes wide with shock, or maybe fear, and then she bolted toward the cabin. My stomach churned. I couldn't understand what I had just witnessed. My mind raced. Why would Lisa throw a suitcase into the lake? What could possibly be inside it that was so important? Or so dangerous that she would destroy it without a second thought? My thoughts jumped to the worst possibilities. Was it money? Documents? Something that could ruin us all? I fought the urge to run after her immediately, but something inside me told me to pause. I needed to stay calm. I needed to think clearly. If I made a mistake now, I could lose any chance of understanding the truth. I reached for my phone, my fingers shaking. I called Raymond, my son. But it went straight to voicemail. Panic surged through me. He always answers. He always picks up. Not this time. I watched the ripples where the suitcase had disappeared. The water swallowed it whole, hiding whatever secrets it contained. I felt a cold weight settle over my chest. Whatever she had thrown away, or tried to destroy, could change everything. My family, my home, the trust I had placed in her, even my sense of safety. I took a deep breath and tried to steady my trembling hands. I needed to retrieve that suitcase. But how? The water was cold, deep near the center, and dark enough that I couldn't see more than a few inches below the surface. I looked around for a long branch, a net, anything that could help me fish it out without alerting Lisa. I glanced back toward the cabin. Lisa was inside now, no doubt watching me, making sure I didn't know what she had done. My blood boiled, a mix of anger and fear. She thought she could hide her actions. She thought I wouldn't notice. She was wrong. I stepped closer to the edge, testing the muddy ground beneath my boots. Each ripple from the suitcase's splash seemed to pulse against my heartbeat. I could almost imagine it moving, as if the lake itself was taunting me, keeping the truth just out of reach. I tried calling Raymond again, my voice quivering when I left a message. Raymond, it's Mom. Call me back. Lisa, she threw a suitcase in the lake. I don't know what's in it. Please call me back. I hung up, swallowing hard. Silence, and returned, but it felt heavier this time. The lake, which usually brought peace, now seemed to hold a dark secret, one that Lisa had deliberately tried to bury. And the more I stared at the water, the more I realized this wasn't an accident, a rash decision, or something harmless. This was calculated. She wanted to hide something from me, from Raymond, from everyone. I dropped to my knees at the shore, staring into the water, willing the suitcase to resurface. I couldn't see it. The ripples had flattened, the mist had thickened, the lake had taken her secret, and now it was up to me to uncover it. A chill ran down my spine. I knew this moment would change everything. Nothing would ever be the same again. My instincts screamed at me, retrieve it before she realizes I know. But the lake, dark and mysterious, had swallowed more than a suitcase. It had swallowed the calm I once felt, the trust I once had, and perhaps the last ounce of ignorance I'd allowed myself. I pressed my fists into my knees, steeling myself for what I would have to do next. The water was just the beginning. Lisa's actions were a signal, a warning that secrets were no longer safe, and that her true intentions were now my responsibility to uncover. I took one final steadying breath and whispered to myself, I will find out what she's hiding. No matter what it takes. I had to retrieve it before she realized I knew, but the water hid more than just a suitcase. What would you do if you caught someone destroying something mysterious in front of you? I stared at the envelope lying on my kitchen counter, my name written in neat, familiar handwriting. My fingers shook as I reached for it, dread twisting in my stomach. I had a feeling, deep down, that whatever was inside would change everything. Slowly, I slit the flap open and pulled out the contents. The first document made my eyes widen. It was a bank statement, but not just any statement. It showed large sums of money being transferred from my late husband's estate into accounts I didn't recognize. My breath caught. I scanned the next few papers, each more damning than the last. Contracts, receipts, letters, and even notarized forms. I felt my heart pound as the realization sank in. Lisa, my daughter-in-law, had been siphoning money secretly. Funds that were meant for Raymond, for our grandchildren's education, even for family investments, had been quietly redirected. The handwriting on some of the checks, the signatures, the forged stamps, they were all confirmed. She had gone to great lengths to cover her tracks. A wave of anger and betrayal washed over me. How long had she been doing this? How many times had I smiled at her, welcomed her into my home, trusted her as part of my family, all while she plotted to steal what was rightfully ours? My chest tightened, and I felt my hands tremble. I immediately reached for my phone and typed a message to her. "Lisa, we need to talk. Now." I hit send, but seconds passed, minutes passed, and there was no reply, not even a sorry or a question. Silence. My blood boiled. This was deliberate. She knew I was discovering the truth, and she didn't even pretend to care. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Anger alone wasn't enough. I needed proof, and I needed to organize it. I began photographing every document, every receipt, every contract, and every photograph. I made a catalog, careful to note dates, amounts, and any irregularities. Nothing could be overlooked. Every detail mattered. As I worked, a chilling realization settled over me. Lisa had been planning this for months, hiding everything in plain sight. The polite smiles at family gatherings, the excuses for delays in discussions about the estate, the constant, "I'm just helping Raymond manage things," all lie. All carefully designed to make me believe she was trustworthy. I paced the room, trying to process the betrayal. How could someone, who had eaten at my table, slept under my roof, laughed with us, and shared family stories, do this? And the cruelty didn't end there. She had involved digital accounts, online transfers, and even mobile banking apps I didn't use regularly. Everything was wired to vanish if anyone looked too closely. My hands hovered over my phone again. I called Raymond, careful not to panic him but needing his support. "Raymond, we have a serious problem," I said quietly. "I just received some documents. It looks like Lisa has been taking money from your father's estate." There was a long pause. I could hear the catch in his breath. "Mom, are you sure?" he asked. "I've seen it, Raymond. Every transfer, every contract, every check. It's all here." I don't know what to say," he whispered. I thought she loved us." "I know," I said softly, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I trusted her, we all did, but trust doesn't erase what's been done." I hung up and returned to the stack of papers. My mind raced with strategies. I couldn't just confront her blindly. She was clever, manipulative, and had already erased digital trails, hiding messages and deleting files before I could see them. But how had she known to cover everything so meticulously? I realized that time was against me. By the time I had hung up with Raymond, Lisa had already deleted every digital trace of her actions. Emails gone. Bank notifications cleared. Files removed. She had anticipated discovery and acted swiftly. My anger flared hotter than ever. She thought she could outsmart me. She thought I wouldn't notice. I knew I had to act carefully. Gathering more proof was crucial. I needed her to underestimate me once more, just as she had underestimated the patience and resolve of the woman she had betrayed. I documented every anomaly, every suspicious transfer, and every forged signature. I even began cross-referencing dates with family events, trips, and her known absences. The picture became clearer. The betrayal wasn't impulsive. It was a calculated scheme. For the first time, I felt the quiet, focused determination that only comes from being cornered. Lisa had underestimated one thing: my love for my family and my refusal to let anyone steal from them. I could forgive mistakes, even some misjudgments, but greed, manipulation, that required action. I sat back in my chair, looking at the mountain of evidence in front of me. My hands were still shaking, my heart still racing, but now a new emotion surfaced: clarity. I could see the full extent of her deception. I understood the danger, and I understood what I had to do next. I didn't know that by the time I hung up, Lisa had already deleted every digital trace. I sit at my kitchen table, the envelope of evidence spread before me. The documents feel heavier than any weight I've carried in years. My hands hover over them, trembling slightly, but my mind is sharp. I tell myself I must act carefully. One wrong move, one careless slip, could not only ruin Lisa, but could devastate Raymond. I need precision. I need patience. I need a plan. I call my lawyer the next morning. The conversation is cautious, deliberate. We need to make this foolproof, I say, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath it. We discuss letters to banks, notifications to the authorities, and steps for a controlled confrontation. Every action must have a backup. Every detail must be documented. I will not allow emotion to blind me. I will not let her walk away thinking she won. Lisa continues her charade. She smiles at me, laughs at our dinner table, and posts pictures on social media, unaware that I am no longer blind to her deceit. She believes I'm still clueless. She boasts about her perfect weekend, subtly hinting at the life she thinks she's stolen. Every post, every message, every casual brag strengthens my resolve. I watch carefully, cataloging her arrogance alongside the financial documents. She doesn't realize that each smug photo is another nail in her own coffin. At night, I rehearse the confrontation in my mind. I picture her walking into the room, holding her head high, expecting surprise or shock, perhaps even a little admiration for her cunning. I imagine the excuses. I was just trying to help. Or, I had no choice. I imagine her lies, her tantrums, her attempts to shift blame. I prepare responses for each, rehearsing calm and measured words. My tone will be even, my demeanor steady. She cannot manipulate me now. She cannot see the storm behind my calm eyes. During the day, I move with deliberate normalcy. I chat with Lisa as if nothing has happened, smile politely, make small talk about Raymond's work, the weather, trivial household matters. Every interaction is calculated, every smile hides strategy, every laugh masks the storm beneath. I even cook her favorite meals, knowing full well that the gesture is a performance. She sees a mother-in-law who doesn't suspect a thing. But behind closed doors, I am preparing for the reckoning. I lock the evidence away in a secure location. The documents, the receipts, the photographs, even the digital backups are hidden in a place only I can access. I check them twice daily, ensuring nothing is missing or compromised. It is a ritual now, part of my preparation. Each day, I maintain this careful balance between outward normalcy and inward vigilance. Every act of civility is a mask, every word a weapon waiting for the right moment. My phone becomes another tool. I schedule calls with my lawyer, double-check bank transfers, and confirm that authorities are ready to act if necessary. I map out the confrontation, step by step, ensuring no one, not even Raymond, will be collateral damage. I envision the room, the placement of documents, the timing of questions. Each scenario is rehearsed until it feels second nature. I refuse to allow emotion to grandstand, dictate the flow. Precision must reign. As the week passes, I notice subtle signs of Lisa's complacency. She continues her social media posts, oblivious to the knowledge I now possess. She jokes with Raymond about vacations, new cars, and future plans, never suspecting that I have the proof to undo every fantasy she has built. Her confidence, her arrogance, only strengthens my resolve. She has underestimated me. And that underestimation will be her downfall. Late one evening, I sit alone with the documents spread around me, reviewing every line, every signature, every irregularity. I feel a quiet calm settling over me. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I sense control. I know the facts. I know the evidence is solid. I know the path forward. My anger is still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it is no longer the guiding force. Logic, preparation, and strategy now govern every decision. I also reflect on Raymond, his unwitting trust in Lisa, and the naive faith he placed in her words. Protecting him is as important as exposing her. I cannot allow him to suffer for her schemes. He is my son, and his well-being anchors me even as I plan this confrontation. I remind myself that justice does not need to be loud, it needs to be effective. Every step I take is for him, for our family, for what is right. When the day finally comes, I realize just how much Lisa has underestimated me. Her confidence, her arrogance, her sense of invincibility, it blinds her to the storm I have prepared. She believes she is untouchable. that the mother-in-law she once dismissed as harmless is still naive. She will soon learn that patience, strategy, and knowledge are more powerful than any deceit she has concocted. I stand at the edge of my plan, ready to act, every step calculated, every word prepared. I have waited, I have observed, and I have prepared. The time for confrontation is near. She may have thought she was clever, but I have proven to myself that cleverness cannot outmatch vigilance. The reckoning will come, and it will be precise, unflinching, and inescapable. When the day came, I realized just how much she underestimated me. I sit at the kitchen table again, the photographs and documents spread before me like a crime scene. Each one tells a story I never wanted to hear. But as I review them, one detail keeps standing out: a name, mentioned over and over in bank transfers and emails. A lawyer. Someone who should have been trustworthy. Someone working secretly with Lisa. My stomach twists. She isn't acting alone. Someone helped her cover her tracks. Someone who knew how to make the money disappear, how to launder it so that no ordinary search would find a trace. This was no spur-of-the-moment act. It was planned, calculated, and executed with cold precision. I grab my phone and begin investigating. I check call logs, texts, emails, anything that could lead me to more information. My fingers tremble over the screen as I scroll through exchanges that confirm my growing suspicion. The lawyer had been in contact with Lisa frequently, discreetly, in code, discussing accounts and transfers. They were partners in deception, and their actions had gone unnoticed for months. Then, another name appears in the records. My sister-in-law, someone I trusted implicitly. Shock strikes me like a punch to the chest. She had been helping Lisa all along. Messages between her and Lisa show instructions on hiding documents, timing withdrawals, even coordinating excuses for Raymond so he wouldn't suspect a thing. My own family had been complicit. I feel a surge of anger and betrayal, but beneath it, a cold clarity sets in. I cannot allow this to overpower me. Panic will not help. I need proof, copies, records, everything in triplicate. I begin gathering every shred of evidence I can find: screenshots, scanned documents, voice recordings. Each piece is meticulously catalogued. I triple-check bank account statements, ensure that all correspondence is backed up, and place it in a secure folder. Every step I take is deliberate. Every decision is calculated. I cannot afford mistakes. I think of Raymond, unaware of the depth of deception around him. I think of the trust he placed in both his wife and his sister. Protecting him has become as important as exposing Lisa. And now, with my sister-in-law implicated, the stakes are even higher. I take a deep breath and try to make sense of the betrayal. Lisa, the woman who promised love and family loyalty, has been manipulating everyone. My sister-in-law, who I considered an ally, has been covering her tracks. The lawyer, someone meant to uphold justice, has been aiding them. I feel cornered, but determination settles over me like armor. I cannot allow them to win. Not now. Not ever. Hours pass as I work, organizing evidence, noting discrepancies, and creating a chronological timeline of events. The plan I made earlier with my lawyer now has an added layer. I will confront Lisa, but I must also account for the third party. Their arrogance has given me time to prepare. They think they are untouchable. They do not know that I see every detail, every move, every lie. Finally, I gather all physical copies of the evidence and lock them in a secure drawer. Digital backups are encrypted and stored in multiple locations. I double-check, triple-check, and finally, I allow myself a brief moment to sit back. The weight of betrayal presses down, but so does a quiet resolve. I am ready. The next morning, I called my lawyer to review my approach. Every step is planned. Confrontation must be precise. Legal documentation must be airtight. Raymond must remain shielded from immediate shock. Every word I will speak, every document I will present, has been rehearsed. I must ensure the third party cannot manipulate the narrative in their favor. When the time comes to confront Lisa, I choose my moment carefully. I do not act out of anger. I act out of calculated purpose. I meet her at the edge of the living room where she believes she is safe, comfortable, untouchable. My heart pounds, but my voice is calm. I watch her expression as I place the folder of evidence in front of her. For a moment, she studies the contents, a slow realization spreading across her face. Then she glances up at me, a smile curling across her lips. Smug, confident, untouchable. She thinks she can charm her way out, that she has calculated every escape. I feel a chill, knowing she underestimates the depth of my preparation. But I am not intimidated. I have proof. I have the timeline. I have documented every secret transfer, every whispered instruction, every hidden message. The moment is mine, and I will not let it slip. By the time I confronted her, she smiled, smug, thinking she was untouchable. I told her it was a family meeting, just the three of us, nothing dramatic. Come by the cabin around noon, I said. We needed to talk about Raymond's plans for the house. She accepted, of course. She sounded cheerful, almost relieved. She had no idea what I already knew. When she arrived, she hugged me the way she always had. Quick, practiced. The kind of hug that keeps distance wrapped inside. She sat at the kitchen table, smoothing her skirt, smiling as if the world were still exactly as she wanted it to be. I poured tea for both of us, then sat down opposite her. The evidence was between us. I placed the folder on the table and opened it slowly, as if arranging a stack of ordinary papers. Photographs, bank statements, invoices, forged signatures, screenshots of messages. Each sheet was a fact she could not change. She glanced at the first page and offered a light laugh, the kind you use to dismiss an awkward moment. What's all this, Maureen? Some kind of joke? Her voice tried to be casual. Her eyes did not. I did not laugh. I stayed calm. Calmness was a tool I had sharpened since the lake. This is not a joke, I said. These are copies of transfers from my husband's estate. These are receipts for payments into accounts you control. These are documents signed with forged signatures. Do you know what forgery is, Lisa? Her laugh stopped. For a moment, she looked stunned, like someone who thought a storm had missed them by a block. Then her face shifted into an expression she hoped would work, guilt, edged with a practiced sorrow. Maureen, listen, it's complicated. She paused, searching for the line she had used before when someone suspected her. Only what? I asked. Only took money? Only hid contracts? Only lied to my son? Because from where I'm sitting, it reads like theft. She swallowed. We needed help. You know how hard things have been. The bills, and the baby. And, you mean Raymond's job? I said. You mean the mortgage you both told me was under control? I reviewed these statements. There are transfers on dates you claim to be at work. There are withdrawals the same days you were at family gatherings. It's all here, Lisa. All of it. She reached for the papers, fingers trembling. I pulled the folder back gently. Don't touch them. Not yet. I tapped the phone beside my elbow. Everything I say is being recorded. Her eyes flicked to the device. The smugness I had seen earlier drained away. She had expected a scene, maybe a dramatic shouting match, that would let her slip away with excuses. She had not expected evidence, documentation, and a calm voice. I don't need to record anything, she said. Her voice was smaller now. Maureen, you're doing this in front of Raymond. You should, she stopped, realizing I had planned for that too. You invited him, then, I said. You made him think we were discussing the house. That way, he would come by, mention an appointment, and you would be safe in your little world. I watched her face crumble slightly at the memory of the lies she'd told. She had underestimated how quickly the truth can assemble itself when someone is paying attention. She tried the old trick next, blame the accomplice. It wasn't all me, she said. There were people helping. I didn't have to know everything. The voice was softer, like someone bargaining for mercy. Helped by whom? I asked. She hesitated. She searched for a name, for a lie that would stick. A lawyer, a friend, someone who said they could manage it. She tried to make it sound casual, like this was just a poor choice made in a panic. I slid a photograph across the table. It was a screenshot of a message thread. The lawyer's name was right there. The dates matched. The instructions were clear. Her hands went to her mouth as if to stifle a sound. This is all very tidy, she whispered. You're being very thorough. I nodded. I had help. The bank froze a transfer when they couldn't confirm a signature. That's how you were caught. But the paper trail still exists. And now that we have it, we have a choice. We can call the bank, involve the authorities, and let them sort out the forgeries. Or we can try to handle this quietly, and I can take measures that legally protect Raymond's inheritance from any future attempts. Her eyes flashed with fear. For the first time since I'd discovered the suitcase, she looked vulnerable. The evasive smiles, the casual posts, the phone calls. She had thought she could outsmart everyone. She had been wrong. She opened her mouth to speak, to bargain, to promise restitution. Instead, footsteps sounded in the hallway. The door creaked, and Raymond walked in, hands in his pockets, tired from work. He paused, taking in the sight of us, the folder, the phone on the table. He did not need to be told what was happening. He read the room like a book that had been passed between our hands. For a second, his face registered confusion, then comprehension. Then the slow, sick look of betrayal. His eyes moved to the photographs, the bank statements. He looked at me, then at Lisa. "You invited me?" he asked. Voice low. "I asked you to come," I said. "We were discussing the house." He set his coffee down too hard. "What is this?" He looked at Lisa, then back at the folder on the table. Mom, Lisa's smile, the one that had carried her through family holidays and celebrations, vanished. She reached for him, but not in time. Raymond's expression hardened as he scanned the documents. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of the kettle boiling was loud in the silence. I felt a quiet satisfaction settle in my chest, not because I wanted his pain, but because the truth was finally visible in the light. No more secrets, no more shadows to hide behind. Then Raymond spoke. "I need to see everything," he said. His voice was steady, but small. "Now." I pushed the folder toward him. "Take it. Read it. Decide what you want to do." Lisa's face crumpled into something like despair. She realized, with the slow, sinking clarity of someone watching plans collapse, that this was no longer a private performance. Her smirk had indeed faded into fear. I pressed the record button on my phone again, more for myself than anyone else. The confrontation had begun. It would end in consequences. The rest would be history. Then Raymond walks in. He's been listening the entire time. The week following the confrontation passed in a strange haze. I barely slept, not from worry, but from the weight of action. Every phone call, every knock at the door, reminded me that the truth I had uncovered was no longer just mine to hold. It had consequences, real ones, and they were beginning to ripple through our lives. Lawyers arrived early one morning, carrying thick folders and laptops. They sat around the kitchen table as if preparing for war. I let them speak first, listening carefully, nodding at the right moments. Each word confirmed what I already knew. Each document reinforced the web of deception I had uncovered. Lisa's accounts were frozen pending investigation. The accomplice lawyer's own office was under scrutiny, their files subpoenaed. Evidence was stacking up faster than I had imagined. Raymond arrived that afternoon, tired from work, his expression unreadable. I had expected anger, betrayal, even blame. Instead, there was something else, relief tempered by sadness. "Mom," he said quietly, "I can't believe this happened. I didn't see any of it coming. Thank you for being careful." I nodded, unable to meet his eyes for long. I felt calm, not triumphant. Justice wasn't about celebrating someone else's downfall. It was about protecting what was ours and ensuring that wrongdoing didn't continue unchecked. The satisfaction was quiet, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Word traveled fast. Other family members, distant cousins and friends I hadn't heard from in years, began reaching out. Their voices carried shock, disbelief, and sympathy. "I can't imagine how you found out," one aunt said. "You were so patient, Maureen." Each message confirmed something I already knew. The deception was deep, but truth had a way of spreading on its own. I spent the following days organizing everything meticulously. Copies of bank statements, correspondence, messages, and photographs were cataloged. Every piece of evidence was documented and stored safely. I had learned over these past weeks that preparation mattered more than impulse. One wrong move could unravel the justice we had begun to construct. I became a quiet sentinel in my own home, observing, noting, ensuring nothing slipped through unnoticed. Lisa remained silent. She sent no messages, made no calls, and for the first time in months, she did not post her curated social media life. It was as if the air around her had shifted. I knew she was aware the walls were closing in, and that her carefully constructed world of deceit was collapsing. I did not gloat. I did not taunt. I simply existed in the calm certainty that truth was powerful enough on its own. Raymond began sifting through the evidence at his own pace, carefully reviewing every document I had collected. His hands trembled occasionally, and I could see the weight of the betrayal in his eyes. But he moved deliberately, reading each detail, confirming the depth of the deception. There was hurt, yes, but also clarity. He understood now why I had acted with caution, why I had recorded conversations, and why I had waited to confront Lisa at the right moment. Each day brought new developments. The bank called to confirm account freezes. Lawyers followed up on subpoenas. Authorities contacted me for further clarification. I answered each call with precision, careful not to reveal unnecessary emotion, careful not to let impatience or anger cloud my judgment. In this controlled calm, I realized something vital. The process itself was a kind of therapy. Each step forward, each small confirmation of justice being served, strengthened my resolve. Then, one afternoon, as I was organizing the files in my study, a knock at the door startled me. It was the kind of knock that immediately sets nerves on edge. I opened it to find a plain envelope, no stamp, no return address. Only a name written in unmistakable handwriting. Lisa. I held it in my hand, feeling the weight of it. My first instinct was to leave it unopened. I didn't want another manipulation, another attempt at control. But curiosity gnawed at me. I knew her style. She would try to turn anything into a weapon. Guilt, pity, shame. I considered stepping away, letting it sit on the counter, unread. But the envelope represented more than just her attempt to communicate. It was a choice. How I handled it would signal whether I was still reacting or truly in control. I placed it on the desk in front of me, breathing slowly, steadying myself for what might be inside. The house felt silent around me. The wind moved softly outside, ruffling the pages of files left open, reminding me of the calm before a storm. The letter promised more information, more insight, perhaps more deception. But I was ready. I had prepared, strategized, and secured the evidence that mattered most. Nothing she could write would shake the foundation I had built in the past weeks. For a moment, I thought of Raymond. He was upstairs, reviewing the files again, probably thinking of the long road ahead. I realized then that this envelope was no longer about me alone. It represented the final choices for both of us, whether to engage, confront, or ignore. The power had shifted. I picked up the envelope and felt the paper between my fingers, smooth and cold. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady, controlled. I knew the next steps would matter. I would open it, I would read, but I would do so on my terms, without haste, without fear. The reckoning was real. The consequences were unfolding. Justice was no longer just an idea. It was in motion, and we were prepared to see it through. Then, a new envelope arrives at my door, marked with Lisa's handwriting. The envelope sat on my desk, plain, unassuming, yet heavy with the promise of revelation. I had stared at it for hours, weighing whether to open it or leave it untouched. Months of deception, manipulation, and betrayal had taught me patience. I knew any move made in haste could backfire. But curiosity gnawed at me, a steady pull I could not ignore. Finally, I broke the seal. The paper inside was thin but crisp, the handwriting unmistakable, Lisa's. I recognized the small flourishes, the slant of her letters, and the pressure of her pen. As I unfolded the letter, a shiver ran down my spine. I braced myself. She began with apologies. The words were calculated, rehearsed even. "I never meant for it to go this far," she wrote. "I was desperate, afraid of losing everything. I made choices I shouldn't have." Her handwriting shook slightly halfway down the page, as though guilt had finally caught up with her. I felt anger flare, then fade. Each word confirmed what I already knew. She had acted out of fear and greed, not love or concern. She begged for forgiveness, yet the letter contained no hint of restitution. No offers to repay the stolen money, no confessions to the accomplice lawyer. Just words, hollow but urgent, meant to elicit pity. As I read, memories from the past months flooded back. The lake, the suitcase, the hidden documents, the confrontation, every moment replayed vividly. I could see her face as she tried to smile, as she realized her carefully laid plans were unraveling. I remembered the fear in her eyes the moment Raymond had walked in during our confrontation. I felt the familiar pang of betrayal, the ache that had settled deep in my chest. But amidst it all, clarity emerged. This letter, these words, were not for me. They were an attempt to shift blame, to manipulate my emotions. Forgiveness, I realized, was not for her. It was for me. I closed my eyes and let that truth sink in. I set the letter aside, carefully placing it in a locked drawer where it would remain untouched but preserved. It was evidence, a tangible record of everything she had done. If authorities required it, it would be there. If she tried to challenge the process, it would be there. My sense of control returned as I secured it, a physical manifestation of the justice I was ensuring. Hours later, I returned to the living room, moving the blinds to let in the late afternoon Sunday. The warmth felt grounding, calming. I thought of Raymond, upstairs reviewing the documents, grappling with the reality of his wife's betrayal. His resilience and trust in me strengthened my resolve. I would not let anger dictate my actions. I would not allow manipulation to continue. The letter had served its purpose, the truth was out, and the path forward was clear. Then came the discovery. Hidden within the envelope, tucked behind the folded page of her letter, was a thin ledger. I picked it up carefully, heart racing. It was a meticulous record. Dates, amounts, transfers, attempts to erase digital traces. Lisa's final, desperate attempt to cover her tracks. My fingers traced the numbers, and I realized the depth of her planning. She had underestimated me at every turn, assuming I would not see the evidence, assuming I would be blind to her final moves. A surge of satisfaction mixed with relief. The ledger was proof. It was confirmation that my patience, caution, and strategy had paid off. I had caught everything. I had anticipated every step she had taken. And now, I held the final pieces of her deception in my hands. I paused, considering my next move. I could destroy it, erase the final evidence, and move on. The temptation was strong. It would be the easiest path, the one that spared further confrontation. But justice was not just about protecting myself, it was about ensuring accountability. Destroying the ledger would allow her to escape the consequences of her actions, leaving loopholes she could exploit later. I took a deep breath and made my decision. The ledger would stay with me, carefully secured alongside the letter. I would present it to the authorities if needed. I would protect Raymond and my family from any future schemes. And I would do it calmly, without malice, letting the law and truth take their course. At that moment, I felt a shift within myself. Months of anxiety, anger, and disbelief were finally giving way to a measured sense of peace. I was no longer reacting, I was acting, not out of revenge, not out of spite, but out of principle. I had been betrayed, yes, but I was not broken. I had learned, adapted, and ensured that justice would follow. Even as the sun dipped lower, casting golden reflections across the room, I felt a quiet resolve settle over me. The letter, the ledger, the documents, they were all evidence of past mistakes and wrongdoings. But they were also symbols of my resilience. They reminded me that clarity and patience could overcome even the most calculated betrayal. The final surprise came when I discovered a hidden ledger, showing her final attempt to erase all traces. The day arrived with a weight I had both anticipated and dreaded. Authorities came to our home, carrying folders, tablets, and the kind of professionalism that left no room for excuses. I had organized everything meticulously, the documents, photographs, and the hidden ledger. Every piece of evidence was in its place. Lisa arrived unaware, her confidence still intact. She smiled faintly, as though she believed charm could override proof. That illusion ended the moment the officers began presenting the ledger. They laid out each page, explaining the transactions, the forged signatures, and the patterns of deceit. Lisa's face turned pale, the color draining with every word. I stayed silent, observing her reaction. I didn't need to speak, the evidence did the talking. The months of manipulation, the secret transfers, the attempt to erase digital traces, it was all there. The ledger was damning, precise, and irrefutable. The officers asked her to explain. She faltered, stumbling over her words. At first, she tried to downplay the transfers, claiming confusion, miscommunication, or misunderstanding. But as they continued, showing her direct involvement, her alibis crumbled. She stammered, tried to shift blame to her accomplice lawyer, and even attempted tears. None of it worked. Every excuse had been anticipated. Every lie had a counterproof. I saw Raymond watching from the doorway, tension etched into his features. Relief mingled with lingering shock. He had been blindsided by his wife's actions, just as I had. But he also understood the importance of accountability. Seeing justice take its course gave him a measure of comfort. Authorities made it clear Lisa would face financial penalties, and the legal prosecution would proceed without delay. The accomplice lawyer was already under investigation. The system, at last, was holding everyone responsible. I felt no gloating, no satisfaction of revenge. I only felt peace. My family's future, our finances, and our security were now safeguarded. Months of secrecy, betrayal, and deceit had led to this resolution. I had anticipated every step, prepared every document, and stayed calm when panic could have overtaken me. The weight I carried for months lifted gradually, replaced by a steady sense of closure. Yet just as I thought it was over, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a routine notification. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. The message was short, cryptic, and unsettling. "Check your mailbox, you're not finished yet." A chill ran down my spine. My mind raced. Could someone else have been involved? Another accomplice I hadn't uncovered? Or was this some final attempt at intimidation from Lisa? I showed the text to Raymond. He frowned, uneasy, but we both knew what had to be done. Ignoring it wasn't an option. Our patience and attention to detail had protected us before, and now they would again. We decided to investigate cautiously, together. Every decision had to be measured. The last thing we needed was to react emotionally. I checked the mailbox carefully. Inside was a small envelope, unmarked. No name, no return address. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside were documents that shocked me to the core. Additional evidence of financial manipulations I hadn't discovered before. This wasn't just about Lisa anymore. Someone else had been helping her, perhaps manipulating the accounts from the shadows. The realization settled heavily. Betrayal had deeper roots than I initially thought. But instead of panic, I felt clarity. I had prepared for this. My lawyer was already involved. Every precaution I had taken over the past months, documenting, securing evidence, and keeping calm, would serve me once more. Raymond stood beside me, silently supportive. His presence reminded me that family resilience mattered as much as legal victory. We would face this next challenge together. The past months had taught us to stay vigilant, to act deliberately, and to trust our instincts. I called my lawyer immediately. Together, we planned the next step, reviewing the new documents, identifying the hidden accomplices, and preparing to expose them fully. The authorities would now have more than enough proof to extend their investigation. Lisa's circle of deception was unraveling. Even in this tense moment, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. Months ago, I had felt powerless when Lisa flung that suitcase into the lake. Now, months later, every move she made, every deception, every attempt to hide the truth was being countered with calm, precise action. I glanced at Raymond and nodded. No words were necessary. We were ready. We had faced betrayal, manipulation, and lies. We had turned chaos into strategy. And we would finish what we started. But there was one last text. From someone I never expected. Months have passed since the chaos of discovery, confrontation, and exposure. The lake, once the stage of Lisa's shocking betrayal, now reflects calm waters and quiet mornings. I walk along the familiar shoreline, the mist curling gently above the surface. Each step feels lighter, as if the weight of deceit, manipulation, and betrayal has finally begun to lift. Raymond walks beside me, a steady presence. There is a new rhythm to our relationship, one built on honesty, trust, and shared resilience. He no longer hesitates to confide in me, and I have learned to listen without judgment. Our bond, once strained by secrets and lies, has emerged stronger. I realize that the trials we endured together have shaped a connection far deeper than simple family ties. I think back to the day I saw Lisa throw the suitcase into the lake. That single moment of shock, fear, and confusion could have spiraled me into despair. Instead, it became the catalyst for vigilance and strategy. That was the moment I understood that appearances deceive. I also learned that inaction can be as dangerous as betrayal itself. Standing still would have allowed destruction to continue unnoticed. I remember carefully gathering evidence, consulting my lawyer, and quietly observing every detail. Each measured action ensured that justice would prevail without impulsive confrontation. Months of planning, patience, and calm resolve turned what could have been chaos into certainty. It was a lesson in the power of deliberate, mindful response. Even in the aftermath, I maintained boundaries. Lisa's legal consequences were unfolding, and the accomplice lawyer faced scrutiny. I didn't celebrate. I remained steady, knowing the real victory lay in safeguarding our family's future, not in revenge. Raymond watched closely, learning the importance of measured action and composure in the face of betrayal. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that our home, our finances, and our lives are secure. I take a deep breath and listen to the gentle lapping of the water, letting it remind me of the clarity that comes after storms. Life, with all its unpredictability, has a way of restoring balance, but only if we choose strength over reaction, wisdom over impulsiveness. I pause near the spot where Lisa's suitcase sank, reflecting on the layers of deceit I uncovered. She thought she could act without consequence, hide secrets in plain sight, and manipulate those around her. Instead, careful observation, patience, and principled action revealed every hidden move. The lake, which had been a symbol of fear and betrayal, now feels like a mirror of resilience and resolution. Raymond stops beside me, looking out over the water. He squeezes my hand, silently acknowledging the shared lessons of the past months. Trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, slowly, thoughtfully, and deliberately. I see his growth, his newfound respect for boundaries, and the clarity that comes from witnessing both betrayal and justice. Life has returned to a steady rhythm. I tend to my garden, write in my journal, and spend mornings in quiet reflection. The tension that once dominated our home has given way to peace. I have learned to distinguish between control and influence, between protecting what matters and letting go of what I cannot change. Betrayal, though painful, no longer has the power to define me or our family. The lessons linger in small, everyday moments. I notice the details, the sun glinting off the water, the sound of birds returning to the trees, the laughter of neighbors far removed from the previous chaos. Each of these details serves as a reminder that life continues, even after deceit and manipulation. We cannot undo the past, but we can shape the future. Reflecting on all that transpired, I understand that standing firm, gathering proof, and responding strategically was the only way to ensure justice. Impulsive anger could have destroyed relationships and left our family vulnerable. By choosing strength, calm, and prudence, I protected both Raymond and myself. I also discovered a personal truth. Resilience is not born from avoiding pain, but from confronting it with clarity and purpose. Finally, I stand at the water's edge, letting the lake mirror the sky. Its surface is calm, yet beneath it lies depth, unseen currents that remind me of the complexities of human behavior. Betrayal can strike from the places we least expect, but the strength to respond lies within. My heart feels steady, my mind is clear, my family's future is secure. Sometimes, discovering the truth is painful, but standing firm ensures peace and protection for those you love. Strength is measured not by retaliation but by composure, strategy, and the courage to face uncomfortable realities. Forgiveness is not always about the other person, sometimes, it is about reclaiming your own peace. I found betrayal in the most unexpected place, and I chose strength over revenge. That choice has reshaped my life, restored my confidence, and strengthened my relationship with Raymond. No one can take that away from us. If this story inspired you, subscribe for more true life stories of deception, courage, and justice.